Bryan Esarco, who currently serves as Vice President of Business Planning Solutions at UMB Private Wealth Management, and he is an accountant as well as a CFE, CVA, and a certified exit planning advisor with over 25 years in experience. Here we go, Bryan.
Thank you. Thank you. So today's topic, I'm going to have to turn and look this way a little bit as we go through these, but today's topic, take an acquired business and make it better. And I think that's got a lot of multifacets to it. So as I talk to you, I'm going to talk to you kind of like a little bit on the buy side, a little bit on the sell side, a little bit on the entrepreneurial side, a little bit of valuation, and kind of combine them all together. So it's not like we're really looking at this as in a vacuum, like, okay, here's an existing business, let's make it better. You know, there's a lot of different pathways to doing that, if that makes sense. So let's just kind of get started. Yeah, so you have my this is me up here. I got the nice introduction, and I appreciate that. I will tell you a little bit, kind of my history and how I got to where I am in this role at UMB Bank in private wealth. And really helping, I work middle market mostly, middle market businesses, mergers and acquisitions, right? And how did I get there from where I started from as an accountant? You know, so when I graduated my bachelor's degree, I did want to go into like the M&A field, but I just really wound up in public accounting and working in taxation and accounting and auditing, you know, your essential historical sort of accounting functions. At some certain point, I earned a master's in tax. You know, that was the first step because, you know, almost every business question is combined with a tax question. Like, well, what are the tax implications of that? You know, what's the best way? How can I pay the least amount of taxes? So it's critical to have that tax knowledge. In an M&A or middle market or buying and selling in businesses, taxes is very important to that equation. So, you know, from there, I went into fraud examination. I'm a little bit older, so we had Sarbanes-Oxley, which was back in 2002, where fraud really became a really heightened part of audited financial statements and central to the theme of the overall accounting profession. But I got into where I was doing more litigation support work for criminal tax evasion cases. So I was basically my job would be to recreate the books for lawyers who were essentially defending people who were under criminal tax evasion cases, right? And so getting into expert witness testimony in and around that led me into just testimony in regards to accounting and taxes, which eventually led to testimony in business valuation. So that's how I started in business valuation. I became certified in business valuations mainly to look at shareholder disputes. So when two shareholders or partners are fighting, one wants to get out, you know, what's the value of the business? That led into more litigation support work in regards to divorce. And divorce is like, that's guaranteed, right? Like 65% of the people are going to get divorced. So it's a pretty good line of work, a business to be in. So doing business valuations in terms of divorce. Along that realm, I started to realize I was doing business valuations and people were selling the businesses. And I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense for me not to sell the business, right? If I'm going to sell a business and get a 10% commission on that, okay, or let's say $1 million business, $100,000, right? Why wouldn't I do that? Why would I just do the business valuation so for like $20,000 and not take the 100, right? Does it make sense? So I got into business brokerage, selling businesses, helping people sell businesses, getting them ready to go to market and selling them. And that worked out pretty well, except I had one big problem, is that being a CPA, tax season would hit. And at one certain point, what that means is I got very busy, too busy to do other ancillary, activities. So I found myself not able to really meet the market as far as what they wanted, like my customers, trying to list and market their businesses for them. So I did back out of the brokerage business until recently. I just sold the business not too long ago. But, so that then, I got at some certain point, and this is a lot about me, and there's a purpose for why I'm telling you all this. But then I got into scaling businesses. Like I had my own business, right? I don't know if I mentioned that. I was running my own business at this whole time. And the business wasn't really doing that well. Did okay. But then I learned how to scale it. And I grew it 4 times the size in like 3 years. I mean, I blew the doors off this thing. I was doing really well. And by going through a process of educating myself on growth advisory and scaling and entrepreneurial operating systems and things like that. And so I was acquiring accounting firms. I was looking to acquire 4 different accounting firms one year. And the 5th firm I talked to acquired me in the process. So I wound up selling my firm to a private equity company about 3 years ago. And in that process, I saw a different side of the business. So when I acquired another firm, we're talking here today about buying a firm and making it better, right? Or buying a business and making it better, right? That's the focus. So when I went at that at my way, I had processes and procedures, systems that I utilized that would make the business better. If I'd acquired a company, I'd roll them in to my platform and then make them like mine and, of course, make them better, I thought, anyhow. So when I sold my business, I was on the other side of the transaction for the first time, which is unique. So being an acquirer and being the target are 2 different feelings, right? And so what happens is, I went through this period of like, wait a minute, did I make the right decision? Should I have sold my business? Did I sell it to the right person, right? And those are all things that I had to battle with. So part of that, I got into exit planning to further myself, and eventually, this is where I am today. I help business owners grow their businesses, buy businesses, sell their businesses. And I think I come at it in a way based on my experience. I'll tell you this, and I'm not afraid to say this, that I've made, a ton of mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes in my life, and I try to help other people not make the same mistakes I made, in the process. Like I said, buying a business and stepping in there as owner, it's my way. We're going to roll this thing up. You're going to have my system. It's different when it's happening to you. So when my business got bought, everything that I had done to other people, employees, and companies was now being done to me. It didn't feel so good. So I was rather humbled by that, if that makes sense. To be on the other side of it, it's like, wait a minute, this is how those people felt, when I bought their business, So I think I'm pretty unique in the sense of like, just being able to help businesses. So this up here is the start of the process. This is my standard process that I use at the bank. We're going to talk through it a little bit. So the first part here is just really the discovery, and you can ignore this a little bit, but as far as like, I have different tools. What I want to get out of this right here, this first step is really the assessment. I can go through an assessment with a business owner. It's about an hour to come up with their strengths and weaknesses. And basically, I'm going to come up with a valuation of their business, okay, pretty quickly. From there, I'm going to start, if they engage me further, we're going to start to craft a bunch of plans. I'll talk to you more about those plans, but they're going to consist of, business planning for sure. And then in the third stage, we get into the growth stage. How are we going to grow the business, And that's usually going to take 2 to 3 years, we say. And then the 4th stage is really exiting the business. So this is the process that we follow. You'll see in here, business valuation. You'll see team leadership alignment. That's critical, having everybody, thinking in the same way. The strategic plan and the business operating system. I will stop to say that, strategic plan and operating systems are 2 different things. They don't necessarily have to be the same. Strategic planning and growth advising can be two different things. They do intersect and they overlap, but they follow a different process. And then when we get to going to market, I'm doing pre-due diligence, I'm doing quality of earnings, pre-quality of earnings reporting, like light, I call it light Q of E, getting this business ready to go to market. So when I call an investment banking firm, at that point, or that this business that is basically market ready. And I need to get them market ready for a variety of reasons, but one is that you just never know when you're going to get an unsolicited offer and somebody's going to want to buy your business, and you have to be able to act on that then. Like, not trying to get your business ready to sell at that point, but have it ready to sell. So my common statement to everybody is be exit ready all the time. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, what does this have to do with growing a business? The last lady who just spoke here, and she was just over here, she was talking about flying the plane, right? And that really resonates because in business, you have to know your destination. Like she was saying, she was 3,000 feet in the air, and she's got to pick the spot on the runway, and she's got to drop that plane down. And not 2,800 feet, not 3,500, but she had to be right where she was supposed to be, or it was life and death, right? Well, same thing here with what I'm doing. It's like you have to know your exit. You have to have a plan. Where are you today? Where do you want to be in X years? What's your sales price? You have to be exit ready all the time. So you don't go into business just to make it better. That doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't give you a solution. You go into business with an actual destination of what does that mean? What does success for me in this business mean? Is that a sales or a profit margins? What does it mean? So I'm always talking to people, like I said, when I started this is a little buy side, it's a little sell side. This is an example just of the typical valuation that we'll do. Now, this is from the assessment, okay? And this comes out pretty quickly. What this database does, it looks at middle market data, it looks at SIC code, okay? And then it looks at the industry, the SIC code, the middle market, SIC code, net income, number of employees, and total sales. That's it. Those are the only three variables it's looking at. But you can see here, in this case, this is a small business. And I like to demonstrate this business because I think it makes a lot of sense. You can see that if this business was best in class, its value would be $2,650,000. If it was a best in class business. What does that mean? We're going to talk about that in a second. But this business actually scored at 1,484,000. So the business, this is through the owner's eyes. When I'm talking about this valuation, where is this coming from? It's through the owner's eyes. This is how the owner sees the business. Their owner doesn't even consider their business to be best in class. Their owner is judging it based on this assessment as being weak. In this case, it's got a strategic capacity score of like maybe a 50, 52, which is low. We want it to be 75 or higher. Now, my job then comes in is that value gap, the far right corner. I want to increase the value of this business by $1,100,000. That's my job. Because I want to go to market at $2.6 million and not $1.3 million, right? Or $1.4 million. So I'm going to try to increase the business value by $1 million. Make sense so far? The problem sometimes with some of these quick tools is they might ignore things like asset method or asset values and things like that. Remember, there's a lot of quick valuation calculators out there that you can use, but you have to be careful that you're really understanding the business. So like in this case, what if this business had assets that were worth $3 million liquidation value? Then that would be the real value. So we break down the valuation or business valuations into three different methods. 1, asset approach. 2, income approach. 3, market approach. Okay? And so you're going to say the asset approach is liquidation value for your assets. That's the least amount that you would accept. Okay, income approach is going to either use capitalization of earnings or discounted future cash flows as the basis. And then the market's going to go out and look at similar sales of business of that size and use a market multiple. So these tools are great, but they also do create a little bit of controversy with the business owners when they're not seeing the value that they think their business is worth. So I have to kind of walk them through this. It's like, hey, this is a starting point. We know you're struggling in these areas. Let's improve these areas and get you to a better business. And then we'll do a full valuation, a legit full, business valuation at a later date before you go to market. But at least we have a starting point at this juncture. I do want to talk to you just for a second about value. What does value mean? Like, there's 3 core approaches to it, I guess, or methods, if you will. You have enterprise value, you have fair market value, and then you have strategic value. In working with you as the business owner, you say grow your business is what we're trying to do. I'm trying to grow your business, not to grow your business. I'm trying to grow your business to sell it. I guess maybe we should be clear about that, because most of the younger generations that I work with or know, they're not in to run a business for a long time. I teach an ETA program, and our ETAs are really looking 5 years. Just like any private equity outfit, you're in it for 5 years, you have a plan, and you're exiting, right? And so let's talk about these values again. Again, it was enterprise value, fair market value, and then synergistic or investment value. I'm going to try to sell at investment value. So the enterprise value is just a market multiple. It's the most basic. Take enterprise value times a multiple of EBITDA. So your 2 multiple, market says 2 times EBITDA, 3 times EBITDA, whatever the traditional is. Like right now, data centers, anything involved in data centers is like 18 multiples. Extreme valuations on those type of companies. Their valuations have skyrocketed in the last 2 years. You don't see an 18 multiple, 18 times EBITDA very often. Look, maybe a manufacturing company might be 3 times EBITDA. That's enterprise value. Fair market value is what we're going to use for really a hypothetical buyer and a seller, more for tax purposes. It gets you what fair market value might be used in an ESOP transaction. So it's kind of a conservative approach to evaluation of a hypothetical buyer and seller and so forth. But what we're going to try to do is sell for synergistic value. So you're buying a company. I think when you say like buy a business, grow it, make it better, what are we talking about? Like, what kind of business are you buying? Right? Well, I'm going to come back to that. Like, are you buying a bad business? That's not a good idea, right? You don't want to buy a bad business. But what I want to identify earlier on is, if I'm buying this business, who are my sellers? Or who are my buyers of this business? Who can I sell this business to? Who will want it? What sort of private equity group is gonna want to pay me top dollar for this business in 5 years, right? As part of their roll up. And so that's synergistic value. So in this example, synergistic value might be 3.5 million, not 2.6. So I'm trying to get to what the buyers, because when the buyer is buying it and he cuts out or she cuts out overhead and duplication of processes and people, they're able to increase their cash flow, right? And that's going to make my business more valuable to them. And I want them to pay the value my business is to them, not the value that would be to somebody else who's not buying it for investment purposes. Does that make sense? Like, for example, say you were just going to buy the business, but you had no other businesses like mine. Well, you would be buying it for fair market value. Now, if you were to buy the business and you had 10 car washes and mine would be your 11th car wash, well, you're gonna put some synergies together to make your 11 car wash operation much more profitable, right? Rolling mine in, you're gonna save insurances, you're gonna save administrative fees, you're gonna save management fees, all of that. I want you to pay for that. So I'm trying to sell that synergistic value is the point I'm trying to make. That should be your goal when you're staging I'm still trying to set the framework of growing a business and making it better and where you're going. So This is a really big topic. So we have a bunch of different plans. We have the business assessment. That's first plan. We have owner-based plan. What does that mean? Well, you bought your business today, you're going to make it better, but you die in 3 months. Well, we have to have risk protections in place immediately. So don't forego the simple things like, key man life insurance policies, buy-sell agreements, right? Very basic insurance to fund buy-sell agreements. So that's all about owner-based planning. What happens if you die tomorrow? You're young, that'll never happen to you, but it happens to people all the time. They get hit by a car, there's an accident, who knows, right? People get sick. You have to put this in place. So you buy a business today. This is like your first step is risk mitigation. You're going to sell that business in 5 years, but what happens between now and the next 5 years? You have to have insurances in place, right? For your family, right? So a business continuity plan would be important. What is a business continuity plan? It would suggest that if I die tomorrow, there's a document that you're going to be able to pull out of the safe that will tell you who the bankers are, who the lawyers are, who the key people are, who I want the business to go to, which should be in the will. See, it's not as easy just like, okay, let's go open up a business. There's a lot more that you want to plan around. What's in your will? Like, who's supposed to take on this business? Where is it supposed to go? Owner-based planning says, you're a key employee. In my owner-based plan, she has an insurance policy on me. So if I die, she gets the insurance, she buys out my shares, and it goes to my family. There's continuity, right? The business continues in the event of my death or disability that allows for the workers, the customers, and everybody else to move on, and my family to be protected as well. Okay? So that's very important in this owner-based planning piece. Strategic plan. Let's talk about strategic plan. So we have the business assessment. We've identified some weaknesses in the business, but strategic planning. What are the problems that businesses face? That's step one. What's holding it back? You can look at it from revenue side, you can look at it from expense side, but ultimately you've got to say, okay, what's holding it back? What are its risks and how do I mitigate against that? And then get into the process of solving each one and the alternatives, going after whatever alternatives gets you the greatest return first. Quickest and easiest, right? So I actually operate with a business system on top of having a strategic plan because I think they're a little bit different. But then we'll also have a financial plan. You know how many business owners, all their net worth is in their business? They don't save a dime for retirement. It's all the equity of their business. You're going to see that right now, today. We'll talk a little bit later about that. But that's the reality. They don't have retirement accounts. They have their business. And you know what? Most of these businesses that are in the market aren't going to sell. They're not legit businesses to sell. They're not ready to sell. They don't have the features that buyers want, right? So these people who are thinking they're going to sell, they may not. So we have to have a financial plan that suggests how much do you want to retire with? This is all part of this. You just don't say buy a business, grow it, make it better. You're aiming for what is your retirement goal? Do you need $2 million in the bank? Do you need $5 million in the bank? Do you need $10 million? What was your number? What is your number? What is your actual desired amount? Now make this business do it. And if it's not this business, maybe you work this one to a certain point, then you get into something next, right? That's why you're not in it forever. You can sell it, take the proceeds, and get into a different kind of business, as times change. So the financial plan, we'll also get into the estate plan. Again, if you sell your business for more than $15 million, that's single, or $30 million if you're married filing joint, then you're going to have estate tax implications. We have to plan around those estate tax implications. I've had businesses go from $10 million valuations to $300 million valuations in 2 or 3 years. You've got to plan for that. When you see a hockey stick valuation going like that, you need to move that out of your estate in a hurry before you get to the higher value, Because if you go die with that $300 million business, you're going to lose 40% of that to the government. And if you're in Illinois, more. Illinois has an estate tax, right? So my point is you have to know that. And if you see it, then there's a bunch of estate planning that has to take place. So you can't ignore that part. So you have basically, your business plan, you have owner-based plan, you have financial plan, estate plan, and then the family plan. This is all part, so you're buying a business, you're going to grow and make it better. How does that impact your family? What does that mean to them? How do they contribute? How are they part of it? Are they part of it? Do you have children who are going to be working in the business? Do you have parents maybe who are going to be working in the business? Maybe you have other siblings who are not part of the business, but your mom or dad or somebody is working in the business with you, and there could create controversy that way. How do you deal with that? How do you create it like a family governance system? I see it more so like if we sell, a business for, $100 million, it becomes an issue when somebody has 3 kids, 2 kids, 1 kid. Let's say 2, right? Because what's ultimately going to happen? Those kids are going to inherit a lot of money, right? You would agree? I mean, the parents probably aren't going to spend $100 million in their lifetime, or the sellers of the business, maybe. I doubt it. I mean, the interest alone, they should be able to live on that, right? Just the investment money, I would hope. They'll spend some, but ultimately, these children are going to inherit, $20, $30 million. If something happens to the parents earlier on, that money is going to come to them much faster. And like I'm saying, they could be 15 years old. They could be 25. Do they know how to act with that money? Are they prepared to inherit that kind of wealth? Right? You don't want to destroy your family with money, right? You want to prepare them, like education, leadership. If you're going to have a family business, just as kind of a segue here, you have a family business, you're going to grow your business, you're going to make it better. Who are you going to reach out to hire? You're going to reach out to hire family, maybe friends. Okay? That's probably your first maybe route. And so with that, the question then becomes, are they qualified? Look, if your son or daughter is coming into the business, you're not really to put them in like a leadership role right out of the gate. They're supposed to start at ground zero and work their way up. Earn their position in the company. Most of your high net worth families or anybody that's running with a family governance system requires that a lot of the kids will go away, work somewhere else for 3 or 4 years, prove themselves in the other workplaces and come back into the family business, but still start at, the required. And so if there's a job opening, so if there is a job opening, they have to apply for it. And if you're better than them, you get the job. Period. They have to outperform you. So family governance is a system that does this and says, you know what? There can be special programs. Let's teach them leadership. Let's teach them, get them extra education, in terms of financial and things like that to help them be more qualified maybe than you might be, but still. So that's like the last piece. Because hypothetically, somebody in this room, I would hope, is probably going to go out and sell a business someday for $100 million. It could be any one of you. We've had people start businesses out of their garages, and it happens. Especially like I said, this data center boom that we've been having, just weird things, or AI, this one person has an AI platform in healthcare, maybe it was, $5 million valuation with an upward look of like over $300 million. Hypothetical, but if it should go that way because it's what it can do in efficiencies, that software using AI to that particular field should be highly desirable, and it could be a very valuable asset. So there, it's just a simple example of like, it could be any one of you here. I would hope. So planning, it's critical. All right, so now how are we going to create growth? Let me stop for a second. What kind of business are you going to buy? Not a bad business, right? You guys hopefully you have an ETA program here, and you take part of those classes, but you want to buy a profitable business, an endurably profitable business. That's the type of business you're looking for. Like, Usually we'll estimate like, hey, let's go find a business with $5 million in sales, maybe 750,000 or $1 million of EBITDA, that we can get through the SBA process, because the SBA max is like 5 million. So that's your typical, but there you have 5 million in sales, 750,000 of EBITDA. You've got a profitable business. If you buy a $5 million sales company with a loss and you think you're just going to go and turn it around, it's a bad idea. Turnaround and buying a business and growing are two different things, two different skill sets. So you have to be careful. If you're really good at turnarounds, then that would be fine. But we wouldn't, from a conservative standpoint, $5 million is a pretty significant loan, right? All your assets are on the line for it. So you want to make a smart choice and buy a durably profitable business. So we're looking for a business that cash flows regularly, right? It's profitable. It's been in business for a long time. Ideally, it's a business that's a real small line item on somebody's income statement. In other words, nobody would even think about cutting the cost of this business because it's inconsequential to the overall operations. It's like a Netflix subscription. The perfect business model, right? Somebody would say that, right? You wouldn't really, it's $10 or $5, I don't even know, but it's not enough that makes you freak out. If it was $1,000 a month, you might be like, oh, wow, I got to look harder at that. Do I really use it enough? But 5 or 10, you watch a couple movies, you might be good with it. Same thing with these businesses. You want to find a business that's like AI proof, recession proof, and I think that right now, today's world is that AI proof. So it's a necessity, things that people are going to buy. So I was talking to some people the other day, I'm kind of thrilled with the, waste removal business, because there's always going to be waste no matter what. It's got to move, got to get rid of it, so that could be a viable business operation, though. And so you want to look for businesses like that. So let's start with that. What are we looking for? Now, let's get into growth. We want predictable profits and cash flow. That's number one down here on our list. It's a starting block. It's a foundation for everything else. Predictable. I can't underemphasize that word. It's predictable. What increases business value? What makes your business more valuable is the predictability in it. It's got to be predictable. When a buyer can see it does the same thing year in and year out, or has a nice growth trend to it, it has predictability. It increases its value. When your business does this, kind of like profits and cash flows are going up and down like a yo-yo, not good. Not good. Nobody wants to buy risk. In fact, I even tell people who are going to transfer the business to their kids, don't transfer your kids risk. Transfer them value. There's a difference. You can transfer your children or your family a risky business, or you can transfer them something that has value. But predictability and profits and cash flow. Then we get to sustainable growth. So I'm talking to business owners, what's stopping you from growing? A lot of times it's their procedures, their operations are structured right now, like their organization chart can't handle growth. They don't have the right people. Like they don't have sales personnel. We're going to talk about that a little bit. They are the sales team, right? Sustainable growth. If we say what's a number one limiter of any business, what's one thing that we try to cut out of a business from day one? What would you think that would be? The business owner. It's the business owner. We need to get them out. We need to delegate. We need to build a team that can run this business without them. Whenever you have an owner-dependent business, you have next to nothing. Nobody wants to buy a job, right? People want to buy a business. So if your business and all of the decisions in your business are going through you and you have to be there every day, that business value is like next to nothing. Don't fall into that trap. You have to delegate responsibility and authority and build a team. Then you can get to sustainable growth. Now we have a sales team, we have a marketing team, etc. Then we get to predictable, transferable value. We're ready to go to market. We're going to pass due diligence, where our legal house is in order. All these things that may hurt us during the due diligence phase, we've solved for. But that's last. Predictable profits and cash flows is really one of the keys. I just showed you those 3 dimensions, right? Now up here, you see these gaps. If you look at total ORIA, that business has a value of $4.2 million, but it's scoring out at $2.3 million. That means I need to increase its value by about $1.9 million. It's trapped value, and it's trapped in these dimensions. Dimension 1, predictable profits and cash flow, $840,000 of improvements I can make in that dimension alone, right? Dimension 2, I have sustainable growth, $764,000 of value that's trapped there. I can work in that area to increase business value. And then the last one, dimension 3, transferability value, $678,000. Some of these are easy fixes. Some don't take that long to fix. So you can start to move value relatively quickly if you have a process around it. But I wanted to show you this as saying, hey, there's a system here. It's not kind of like going into it blindly, but knowing we're going to start with dimension 1, usually. I love this. These are your value drivers. Look, if you have these, you're going to have a strong business. If you have these, if you're strong in these areas, let's take a look at them. Effective senior leadership. Seems to make sense, right? But if the owner is the leadership team, nobody else, it doesn't. You have to delegate and have a leadership team who's capable of running this business on a day-to-day basis without you. I said that once, I'll say it again, because it's one of the most fundamental ways to increase business value. If you're buying a business that's really owner-dependent, you're buying a job, the first thing you probably need to do is get a leadership team to help you. So don't get too bogged down in the weeds of that business. Go ahead and do you have the cash to invest in people to help you grow. People, productive, and loyal. What does that mean? It means that, hey, your employees can come to work. They stay with your business for a long time. You don't have a revolving door of people, right? And they can become productive in a short amount of time. Growing a business, sometimes what you have to do is take whatever you're doing and you have to dumb it down. Like if you're taking one person and their learning curve is 2 years to learn that job, it's way too long. You can never scale a business that way. You need to dumb this thing down so they can learn their task in 6 weeks. So it's really short. Then they can learn the next task, and then the next task, and then build from there. But make it so that it's really, really easy to learn that piece. Don't try to teach everybody how to build an entire automobile. Try to teach them how to build one piece of it or install one piece of that automobile. That's it. They can work their way through the factory line and learn the rest of it over time, but at least you have productivity in the one area right away. You're getting value for that employee right away. That's important. But the fact that they're staying with your company is critical. Down here I have culture. I'm skipping to culture because without culture, you've got nothing. The most successful businesses that I work with, the ones that I'm telling you that go from 10 to 15 million to 300 million or 400 million, they had one that went from 15 million to over 600 million. You know what they all had in common? Culture. Their employees loved working there. They loved their employees. They did good things for their employees. Their employees would go to battle with them. That was a common underlying fact in all my cases so far. People truly love working in these businesses, this good culture. So you're buying a business tomorrow. What does that look like when you step in the door and it's your culture, right? You need to be prepared for that. What is your value system? What do you stand for? And are the people in the room with you or without, against you? That may cause a little bit of conflict in the beginning. But you shouldn't live in that space. If there's conflict, you need to surround yourself with people that share the same value system. Your hiring process should be structured around culture. Do they share my value system? Do they share what we believe in? Do they share an ROI of what we're doing, right? Top right, valuable attribute, recurring revenue. Everybody wants this. Predictability, again, buy a business that has recurring revenue and you're buying value. Predictability, you want recurring revenue streams. the Netflix model works because it's recurring. If you're buying one-off jobs, it's not good. So really, really look for recurring revenue. Strong margins. I ask people all the time, hey, what are your margins? Do you know your margins as compared to industry, your competitors? And I get blank stares. Business owners don't. They don't spend the time on their financials. Financial reporting process is the next one over. Their financial statements aren't up to date. They're 2 years behind. They're a year behind. They're running the business off the seat of their pants and whatever they see in their bank account. They're not looking at their key performance indicators. They're not looking at their cash flow. They're not looking at income. They're not looking at costs. They're not comparing themselves to industry. They're not setting any standards. This is easy. This is easy fix for anybody looking to go in and grow a business, because you're going to find most of the businesses that you're looking at to buy and acquire are going to have, they're not doing this. Unless they're working with somebody like me, then they'll have it, right? So strategic vision. That actually goes back to step number 1. Do you have a one-page document that you can give to any investor, employee, banker that will tell your story, what you do and why you do it? Simple. Most businesses don't have that. They don't have a strategic vision. They're just doing. So your job here, you're buying a business, you're going to grow it, make it better. What is your strategic vision? What are you doing and why? You document it, right? You document it and you let everybody know. All your employees need to know. Don't keep it a secret from them. They need to be able to recite what your vision is. What's your strategic vision? They have to know and they have to live it. It's critical that this is happening. Obviously, standard operating procedures. I know the lady before me was talking about operating procedures. We're in it all the time. Like, is it documented? How does things work? Let's analyze the process. Let's look for efficiencies. Let's make the business better. You have to go through this process. It's hard work sometimes, but you have to go through that process of documenting. I mean, documenting the procedures, not just putting them in your head, but actually writing them down, analyzing them, solving the problems in what's the bottlenecks, if there's idle time, if anything like that's holding, if people are standing around, it's costing you money. So you want to identify that quickly. Financial budget and forecast, bottom right. So financial reporting process is just getting financial statements done. Forecasting, how important is that? Absolutely critical. You know how many businesses operate with a forecast? I do this all the time. I do this every day, all day. Not many, except for the good businesses that are in the 300 to 200 to 100 million. Those they do. They do. But then you get to the lower middle market, they don't. And they're wondering why they're stuck. Well, what's your budget? Well, it's the same as it was last year. Just put the last year's numbers in and roll them over. No, that's not a forecast. You have to know where you're going. You have to grow. You have to be, specific about your forecast, and you're measuring it weekly. Look, if you're an athlete or anything like that, you would do the same thing. Like, okay, I'm preparing for an event. I need to run this pace. So there I go. I mean, I'm every day I'm working towards that, right? It's a forecast. I have a forecasted time that I'm trying to run, and this is how I'm going to get there. Okay, same thing. It blows my mind that people don't operate with a forecast, but it's common. This is how you make your business better. You have to have it. You have to have it. Then we'll get into some of the fun stuff. High customer satisfaction. When's the last time you asked your customers, how am I doing? No, we don't. Customer surveys. You see some people that do, right? I'm sure you guys get that, but a lot of companies, they don't ask. They don't get the real answer from their customers. How are we doing? How can we support you better? What can we do that would make you a better experience? People value that, right? They value that. Look, if I'm buying your business and I can look at your Google reviews and you've got 10 from 5 years ago, forget it. You've got no customer loyalty. There's value in customer satisfaction. If you had 1,000 Google reviews, it's like, whoa, 5,000 5-star Google reviews. You know what? the value of your business just went up. You never discount like brand value, reputational value. It can drive your business value higher. So you're buying a business that doesn't have any online presence, doesn't have these things. You start to embed these into your business. It's going to grow that business. It's going to grow that value. You're going to get the feedback from your customers to help you improve the business and the processes, and it's going to grow your business value. I ask people too, what's your marketing process? We don't have one. Well, how do you get new customers? Well, they call, right? I kid you not. I'm not making this up. It's common. You have to have a marketing process, a written, documented marketing plan that you follow that generates leads. But before you do that, you better have a scalable sales process. You better have a sales team who knows what to do with the leads. So really, you want to build the sales force first and then let the marketing plan kick in. You want to grow your business, you need to do those two things. But here's the catch. If you go your scalable sales process, you do that first, right? And then you build your marketing, you start to get those leads, you start to get those sales. If you don't have people who are productive and loyal, if you don't have good culture, if you don't have a financial forecast and budget, if you don't have strong SOPs, if you don't have strong margins, the whole thing's going to fall apart. So you can't look at it in a vacuum. You have to do all of this together with your vision and effective senior leadership, and now you can, really grow business value. I can't stress these enough. These are middle market due diligence value drivers. These 12 right here are critical to increasing business value. If you don't have these, you're going to fail due diligence. Things are going to go bad for you. You're not going to get the value for your business. This is proven. I get really excited about it. It's fun to work on. How do we go about it, right? Which one of those do we tackle? We have to prioritize our objectives. We have to get into a series of accountability, execution, and reporting. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here's our prioritization tool. On the bottom, it goes impacts on profits from 0 to 10. Here we have ease of implementation, 0 to 10. You can see the top right corner. We got ease of implementation, easier, and impact on profits, the highest. Those are the ones you go for first, hypothetically. Now, it doesn't always work this way. If you're thinking like a strategic plan, you should tweak this a little, right? You should tweak it a little bit if you're thinking strategically, because what this is telling you, like, sales process, high customer satisfaction and strong margins, high recurring revenue, we'd agree. Now, how easy is it to take a business that doesn't have recurring revenue streams and create recurring revenue streams? It's not, yeah. You have to really look at, some businesses you can't. Those are businesses you probably don't want to buy. You want to buy subscribing businesses. But this will tell you where you should work. And like you can see, like financial reporting processes down here. We're going to work on those, but we're not going to work on them maybe first. Here's the thing. We have to move in a direction that makes sense. I usually, even though this says this, I usually will use financial reporting as first, scalable sales process second, marketing plan third. I think that sets everything up for growth. Of course, leadership has to be in there. Strategic vision has to be in there. And I feel like strategic vision is a much easier win. Building your leadership team, that's questionable, but that's how you prioritize. Now, this is the roadmap. So the roadmap of what we're going to do when. So we laid this out. So it's very clear of what we're going to do. So we're going to have financial reporting process done in January and done by March. It's going to start in January. It's going to be done in March. You can see the scores up there, the 28 and the 70. The 28 said when we asked them in the business assessment, they basically said they had no financial reporting processes. It's a very low score out of 100. We're trying to get them 270 or higher. So their beginning values are what they scored their business at. You can see like people, productive, and loyal. So that's first quarter. And then down here, we have the sprints of like, okay, what are we going to work on just January, February, and March? But this at least gives you a framework of where we're going. And I think it's really helpful when I show it to business owners. It's like, because this is what happens a lot of times we're talking with business owners, and I'm talking about, marketing plan or sales processes or financial reporting and these different things, right? Next thing you know, next week when I talk with them, they may have like gone through like a haphazard approach to it. And all of a sudden we're doing all sorts of different things. I'm like, well, wait. We're a little bit out of order here. We can't really hire salespeople if we don't have people that can do the work or things like that, so we have to be very careful. So this provides structure. This is where the strategy comes in. This is a process, right? But you have to strategize so the process works. Does that make sense? So this is a process that you can use, but your strategy needs to be embedded into it. You can't do this the same for everybody, right? Everybody's going to have a little different circumstances. But I give this to people, and then now we have clarity around where we're going. We have a roadmap, what we're trying to accomplish, how we're going to grow business value. I didn't stop to say that if I go back a sec, I get this all the time. So the CEO says to me, okay, well, I'll start working on that. Like, no, you're not. Somebody else in your company is going to work on this. They're going to report back to you. You're not doing it. Again, we don't want you to do it. We need your people to do this. Your people are pure capable. And if they're not capable, then you don't have the right people. But most likely you have good people. They just want the opportunity. They want to help. And you need to delegate to them. And they'll do it. Execution. This is critical. And some of this is along the EOS mode. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the entrepreneurial operating system. The entrepreneurial operating system has been around a long time. I think what I do is very similar to that in the sense that I'm putting together prioritizations and I'm creating accountability and I'm creating execution around them. I'm more financially focused in my way than I would be like leadership and culturally focused. But with that being said, I have weekly check-in meetings. So every week we're meeting with your team, right? And we're going to have scorecard. We're going to create a custom scorecard. On that scorecard, it might have items like net income, accounts receivable, accounts payable, cash flow, marketing, sales pipeline, where you're at on the two prioritizations I just showed you, like if you're working on a sales process or marketing plan, where you're at on that. So this meeting could be 15 minutes or 20 minutes. The point is, every week, your name is on a scorecard or my name's on the scorecard, and I've got to report to the rest of the team, where am I at, and am I performing or am I not? There's no scapegoating it here. The people who aren't doing their part are going to get called out really quick, right? And so by creating this accountability, I'm assigning this to you. You need to do it. If you can't do it, you need to let us know why you can't do it, so then we can, get help around it, support it, but then, get this process moving forward. That's critical. Most businesses don't stop. They just run. And you know what? They're reactionary businesses. Phone rings, this is what we're doing today. You came in today, this is what was on your calendar, but you didn't get anything done that was on your calendar. You just got done what hit you in the face today. And that's very reactionary. You don't try not to run a business that way. The more that we can get away from that, the better. We have weekly cash flow. We require that a business operates with a 13-week cash flow, period. It's not optional. You have to have a 13-week cash flow. We want to seek inflows and outflows of cash for the next 13. It's always rolling, right? So we don't want to have any deficit cash balances. Of course, we want cash position to be growing, and we want to have a projected dividend payout policy, right? Because owners want to be rewarded, right? Want to do that. Which goes back to the forecast. We require the annual forecast, so basically a 13-month forecast, a dynamic forecast. And these are all updated every week. So everybody can see on the leadership team, are we moving in the direction towards the plan? And you know what the plan was, right? We talked about this at the very start of this conversation. Knowing what your value was that you were trying to achieve that met your financial plan for your future, right? That's what we said. You said, yeah, I wanted $2 million. I want $5 million. We're trying to grow the business to that value. So we know where we're going. This forecast is going to help us see if we're getting there. Annually, then we're going to, on quarterly basis, of course, we add in new prioritizations and work on them. And then annually, are we going to sell or are we going to continue this business? It's an annual question. So, you don't go into business again thinking you're going to operate it forever. That would be false. Now, this is really important. I mean, everything I think I'm saying is important. But collaboration, I've got up here, collaboration of us around like the business owner. But what I want to leave you really with is like, you have to have a strong bank. You have to have a banking relationship, a banker who understands your business. You have to have a good business attorney. You have to have a good estate attorney. You have to have a good financial planner. You have to have a good insurance provider. You need a good CPA or an accountant or an EA, bookkeeper, whatever. You need good financials, right? You need a team. And here's the thing. If you can get your team to communicate together, you're going to get results. But if your accountant and your attorney and your insurance provider aren't on the same page, like they don't understand you or they're offering you different recommendations, all that you get is confusion. Cut that out. Look, you guys need to get on the same page. Here's the goal. Here's the strategic vision, right? We talked about this. We laid the strategic vision out. Here it is. They all understand it. Now they can guide you towards it together. Look, if you're going to need a line of credit or if you're going to expand your facility, you're going to go build a new building, you don't go put a letter of intent in and then go to your bank. Your banker should know 12 months in advance where your business is and that you're going to need $2, $3, $4, $5 million to build this building, right? Absolutely. And they're going to tell you what you need to do. They're going to tell you what your cash flow needs to be in order to support this facility expansion. And you need to be able to meet those metrics. Goes back to the forecast, right? We're starting to grow sustainably. We know we need more space. We're going to need a new building. That's got to go in your forecast. Now your debt's going to go up. What's going to happen when your debt goes up? You need more cash flow. Your sales got to go up. It all has to line up. It's not just willy-nilly. It's actually done with intent. It's intentional. The more intentional you are, the more specific you are, the more likely are you going to be able to grow this business. Very often these professionals don't want to talk to one another. Everybody wants to offer their own advice. Everybody wants to be the star of the show. Stay away from that. Find people who are willing to collaborate and work for you. I think that's the critical piece. They're willing to work for you. So turning the page here, let's talk about acquisitions. Because you can grow your business by improving it, right? Step one, for sure. But now, what if you grow through acquisition? I always look for acquisition. You know how many of my business owners that I've helped that they were going to sell? They're going to sell their businesses. And then we started talking. We started improving their business. And you know what they start doing? They start buying other businesses. It blows my mind. We're not sellers anymore. We're buyers. We're going to grow EBITDA through buying other businesses. So I've got $1 million of EBITDA. If you get to $2 million of EBITDA, you get an extra couple turns of EBITDA. It's confusing a little bit. So a $1 million EBITDA business might, let's say, sell for $1 million. A $2 million EBITDA business might sell for $4 million. Get that? $1 million, you get the one turn, or say 1 times 2, $2 million. You have a $2 million business that might sell for 4 turns would be $8 million, if you want to look at it that way. Because a business that has more than $2 million of EBITDA is going to get a higher turn. It's going to be a more desirable business. if that makes sense. So sometimes what I'm trying to get at is sometimes what you're seeing in the field today is that people will take 400,000 or 500,000 EBITDA businesses and roll them together to create one $2 million business and then capture that multiple expansion and make a few extra million just by doing that. And your brain can be there. You can say, yeah, I'm going to go out and do that. I'm going to roll up like private equity and things like they're in car washes, right? They're in all sorts of necessity type businesses that you wouldn't even think of. I think 40% of all car washes are owned by private equity today. It's crazy. Some of the other ones are like, the one I laugh about this one all the time, but it's like the porta potties. I don't know if you see them at the festivals and things like that. I mean, those are great recurring model streams. They're highly owned by private equity. The payback period on a porta potty is like 6 months. So they're highly desirable. I know it's crazy, right? But you need them. You got to have them. They have to be on site, and it doesn't require a lot of maintenance of people. You kind of put them there, right? And you leave them and you come back, right? It's profitable. Private equity loves those things, So, I guess when looking at the slide, I have it up here. There's a $14 trillion wealth transfer happening today. That means like there's a ton of baby boomers who are looking to retire and sell their business in the next 5 years. So you can grow your business that way by identifying competitors who are looking to sell, and maybe their businesses aren't in great shape, but you're able to see through that. You know what you're going to be able to do. You have a strong foundation for bringing them in. You want to capture this possibility. What you're going to find out, this slide just demonstrates if I went to talk to a business owner, hey, who are you going to sell your business to? They don't have an idea. You are not going to be that person. Because when I started this conversation with you today, I said you're going to know your exit. You're going to know who you're going to sell this to, when you're going to sell it to, and for how much you're looking to sell it for. Did we establish that, right? I've said it several times. Who, when, and for how much. So you're not going to be this guy. You know who you're trying to sell it to, and you know they're going to buy it. You're positioning it for them. You're making it good for them, right? You're not going to be this, I'll wait, I'll give it away, I'll give it to my family, maybe I'll do an ESOP. So these are the exit options. Transfer to insider, family transfer, ESOP, third-party sale, or the last one is the unexpected. You die and you get nothing. This happens. Don't let it happen to you. That's why I really stress that owner-based plan, the key man policy. I really stress that because you know what? It's happened. Even in the last 5 years, I've had 2 business owners just die. And there's nothing. I mean, there's no business value. It's just, I would get into all this. It's going to get a little bit beyond what we talk about. But as we're structuring our business, we want to look at how we're going to potentially sell it. It's going to be an asset sale or stock sale from a tax standpoint. 1202, I want to touch on that for a second. You can have installment sales or like-kind exchanges. This is probably a little bit more than you need to know. But this gets into the tax planning aspects of selling the business. We're going to try to sell this business tax-free. Okay? Can we sell it tax-free? Can we really sell it tax-free? Yes, you can. If you do it my way, you can. Most likely, if the business qualifies, you can. That's the 1202 provision. Qualified small business stock. That provision says this. These other ones like deferred sales trust, opportunity zones, there's a lot on this slide. There's a lot that goes into the tax planning. But basically, when you're setting up this business to grow, we're going to identify how you're going to exit, when you're going to exit, for how much, and apply a tax strategy to it. That's important. Here's your qualified small business stock. It says, hey, if you hold the stock of the business for 5 years and you sell it, you can exclude the $15 million of gain from tax. Fantastic. Tax-free sale of your business. Has to be a C Corp. Has to not be, there's certain businesses you have to look out for that won't qualify, so you want to check. But $15 million. So like if you've got a business that's selling for $30 million and you want a tax-free sale, that means your wife or your husband would own the other half of the business. Now you have 2 exclusions at $15 million each, and you can exclude $30 million in sale of the business from tax. So if you have a small business that's $1 million and you want to exclude, you can do it easily under this provision, 1202. Don't you want to forget that. And that's what this goes through. Sometimes we'll have somebody selling their business for like 60 million or so. So what we'll do is we'll say husband, wife, and then give a portion of the business to your 3 kids. Now you've got, $75 million exclusion that you can use. So by using trust and things like that, we can do it. We can accomplish it if we plan, if we're ahead of it, So yeah, this is a really, really great tool. And then there's just, talking about estate planning and, when you do sell your business, when you sell for a lot, like sell over 30 or $40 million, usually we get into some philanthropics, gifting strategy. Well, it's a charitable remainder annuity trust or something like that. For sure down here on the bottom. See, like right now, we'll say your state exclusion is $15 million right now. So as long as your gross assets aren't more than the $15 million, you federally don't have a taxable estate. Husband and wife, it's $30 million. You can gift $19,000 a year to anybody, but down here on the bottom, just kind of a last little thought. When you're planning on the exit of your business, sell your business, if you're going to be in a taxable estate, you might create a private foundation or a donor advised fund. A private foundation, you control it. You donate your stock to that private foundation. When you sell a company, the proceeds go to the private foundation, and that private foundation carries on your family legacy and mission. So that's it. I covered a lot. I don't know if we have time for questions or answers. I'd ask. Do you guys have a microphone? I'll bring you in. I covered a lot there, so hopefully you got something out of what I said.
What are your personal opinions on private equity? Do you think that they can be trusted?
Yes. Yeah, everything I do operates along the same lines of what a private equity company would do. We're growing companies for value. We're growing them to resell them.
Good afternoon, Mr. Esarco. I have 3 questions, please. The first one, will you be able to analyze a business proposal for free and invest if you see the potential growth of the business idea, which is from a student who has no fund or no financial support from a family? The second question, how do I get a copy of your business plan or presentation? And the final one, I wonder if you would like to be my financial advisor for free. Thank you.
The slide deck you guys can get from Rodney, right? You guys will get that out. And then I didn't really quite get the first question. I don't know that I understood all of it.
Would you like to analyze a business proposal for free and invest if you see the potential growth of the business proposal, which is set up or prepared by a student or from a student who has no fund or no financial support from a family?
Yeah, that's not a problem. We can do that. Now, a lot of your, just so you guys know, how do you buy a business? You buy it based on what you have in the bank, right? For an SBA, you need 10% down. So $5 million business, you need $500,000. $1 million business, you need $100,000. Okay? Just think about that for a second. And the seller can finance 5% of that. That gets you to $50,000 for $1 million business. So the SBA has a lot of good programs. How is that business financed? It's not so much what you have, it's how does that business cash flow? Does that business cash flow to support the debt? And if it does, it's an acquirable business. A bank will finance it most likely. So I want you to consider, you don't have to have an abundance of wealth or anything to buy a business. And sometimes business owners will just sell or finance. You don't even need a bank. So, but I would still run the deal through a bank to see what the bank's opinions are on it. So yes, I would look at it, and it's not a problem. And they should change their mindset around, hey, they don't have funds. you don't necessarily need a lot of money to buy a business. What you need is skill, experience, willingness to, go to battle every day, grit, determination, those things, leadership skills. Those are the attributes I think you need. But the business will cash flow. If it's got a cash flow for you to buy it, yeah.
Hi, Bryan. Thanks for your nice presentation. I have some couple of questions. Like you mentioned in your presentation, like there are three model for the evaluation, like market-based, earning-based, and also like asset-based.
Yeah.
So are we following any rules or regulations, or the method based on your judgment? And in your practical experience, do you face any challenge, like the owner is asking the valuation should be more, but in your judgment, it is differ from the owner's expectation? And in this situation, how you establish your valuation method? And if time permits, I will have some couple of questions more after receiving this answer.
I think you're...
Do you got my question, Bryan? My first question, out of these three valuation model,
Oh, yeah.
so it is which model I am going to use? Is it based on any rules and regulations, or it's based on your own judgment?
No, the asset method will establish the floor value. You would never sell your business for less than the liquidation value of the asset, so it's floor. Most people will use... You're usually selling future cash flows. You want to sell future cash flows. This is why you want predictability in cash flows and profit. So you use an income method, usually, discounted future cash flows. That's how we normally will do it. That's what you as a seller want to sell.
So my second question was, in your work experience, do you face any situation like owner is expecting the valuation should be more than whatever you have estimated?
Yeah.
And in this situation, how actually you transfer your judgment over the owner?
Yeah, we just had one. I think their business was worth like $15 million. It's probably worth $5 million. So it's a tough situation to be in. So we have to go to the drawing board and we have to work to try to improve that value and see if that's even a possibility to get that kind of value gap. And if it's not, then we adjust expectations. But it does happen all the time. It does. That people think their business is worth more than it really is. And we have to kind of have that conversation. But yeah.
All right, we have time for one more question. I know, up front. Yep.
Hi, Bryan. Thank you so much for coming and for sharing all your insight with us. I have a pretty general question. From your experience, what are the most common type of business models that you work with? And do you find any particular specific kind of business model that is the most successful?
When you say business model, you mean manufacturing, construction, or
manufacturing.
Manufacturers are going to trade at usually lower EBITDAs. Right now, it's everything in the data center build space. That's what's really taking off. But I will say, even stuff like Anytime Fitnesses, or subscription model businesses like that are low cost subscription based generally do pretty well too from a valuation standpoint. So not one specific. I work with people all over the country that I cover. We're pretty much here from California, so all sorts of different kinds of businesses. I think that what you're looking for, though, is predictability in profits and cash flows, something that's AI protected, recession proof the best you can, so more of a necessity. That low line item as an expense on a person's income statement again, and something that has a proven track record in history.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Bryan, for that insightful presentation. I know many entrepreneurs have the fear of starting a business, but you've shown you can not only start, but you can acquire a business and the different factors that go into it. And it was very informative and interesting, especially for me as an accountant. It was very eye-opening. So thank you so much. In lieu of that, from the International Business Planning Committee, together with the College of Business and Technology, I would like to present you with this certificate of appreciation.